So, you thought the tantrum years were over, right? But now your school-aged kid is having these huge emotional outbursts, and it's confusing. Well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to dive into what's really going on with those intense meltdowns in kids from, say, kindergarten all the way to middle school. Let's get into it. You know the feeling. A door slams so hard the walls shake, or your child just dissolves into tears over a single math problem. And you're left thinking, wait, shouldn't you be past this by now? The thing is, these aren't toddler tantrums anymore. The game has totally changed, which means our playbook has to change right along with it.
Yeah, a 10-year-old's meltdown just hits different, doesn't it? It feels bigger, way more complex, and sometimes it can feel like it's aimed right at you. So in this explainer, we're really going to get to the bottom of why these things are happening and, probably most importantly, figure out how we can respond in a way that actually helps everyone involved. Okay, so where do we even start? We've got to start with the brain, because the real reason your kid is losing it isn't because they're trying to be difficult. It's because their brain is, and I mean this quite literally, still under construction. Just look at this. The prefrontal cortex? That's kind of like the brain's CEO, the part in charge of impulse control and rational thinking. Yeah, it's not fully online until they're about 25. That's why your child can seem so logical one minute and then completely fly off the handle the next when stress gets too high. Their thinking brain has basically gone offline for a minute. They aren't choosing to act this way. Their developing brain is just doing its thing. And you've probably noticed the triggers aren't as simple as a broken cookie anymore. Now we're dealing with the heavy stuff, like the weight of a bad grade, the sting of being left out by friends at lunch, or just the absolute exhaustion from trying to navigate a complicated social world all day long at school. They're carrying a much heavier backpack, both literally and emotionally. And this right here is such a crucial mindset shift. If your child holds it together all day at school and then just falls apart the second they walk through your door, it is so easy to feel like you're the target. But here's what's really happening. Home is their safe space. You are the person they trust enough to finally let all that pressure out. I know it feels tough, but it's actually a massive sign of trust. So, to really understand what's going on, we need to start thinking about icebergs. Because with these big kid meltdowns, what you see on the surface is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what's really there. Right, so above the water, that's where we see all the obvious stuff. The stomping, the yelling, the silent treatment. And our first instinct is to react to that. We want to stop the noise, we want to correct the behavior. But if we only focus on the tip of the iceberg, we are going to miss the entire point. Because it's underneath the surface. That's where the real story is. The yelling, it might not just be yelling. It could be crippling anxiety about a test. That door slam, it might not be defiance. It could be deep embarrassment from a mistake they made in front of their friends. If we only address the behavior, we're totally ignoring the real source of their pain.
Okay, so with this new understanding, how do we actually change our response? Well, it comes down to a really fundamental shift in our role. We need to go from being the manager of our child's behavior to becoming their partner in navigating this crazy emotional world.
All right, here's your new playbook. Step 1, protect their dignity. That means pulling them aside for a quiet word, not calling them out in front of everyone. Step 2, collaborate. Let's swap out "because I said so" for "hey, let's figure this out together." Third, offer space, not ultimatums. A simple "I'm here when you're ready to talk" is incredibly powerful. And finally, and this one is huge, just refuse to get into a power struggle. When emotions are sky high, nobody wins. Your goal is to de-escalate, not to dominate.
Ultimately, our job is to help them build their own emotional toolkit. For some kids, that's going to be physical stuff, like shooting hoops or jumping on a trampoline. For others, it might be more creative, like a journal they can scribble in, or a playlist that calms them down. It's also about teaching them to spot their own warning signs, that tight feeling in their stomach or their fists clenching, so they can start to manage the wave before it completely crashes.
Okay, listen up, because this next part is, I would argue, the most critical piece of this entire puzzle. It's not just about how you handle the meltdown in the moment. It's about what you do once the storm has finally passed. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? We are all going to have moments we're not proud of. We're going to yell, we're going to say the wrong thing. But the magic isn't in trying to be perfect. The magic is in the repair. It's going back later when things are calm and saying, "Hey, that got really intense earlier. I'm sorry I lost my cool. I love you." That one single act teaches them that conflict doesn't have to break a connection. It can actually make it stronger.
So let's just boil this all down to the core idea. The real mission here isn't to somehow eliminate meltdowns. That's just not possible. The mission is to completely transform our perspective on them, and by doing that, we transform our response.
This chart here really lays out the whole shift perfectly. We're moving our focus from the behavior to the underlying feeling. We're shifting our entire stance from directing them to collaborating with them. And most importantly, we're changing our goal from winning the argument to strengthening the relationship. That, right there, is the entire game changer.
So I'll just leave you with this question. The next hard moment, it's coming. That's just an inevitable part of raising a human being. But if we can start to see it not as a battle that we have to win, but as an opportunity to connect, well, we can change the entire dynamic of our relationship with our kids. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.